So thank you for coming. My name is John Wilson. I'm the chair of the Merger Study Committee. I'm from Manchester. I'm a former board member of the Manchester School Board, and I've had a great opportunity to chair this great board and get to know the 16 other members. We've become pretty close, and I think you'll see after tonight we've gone in depth with this work, and Deb's going to present something tonight that shows us where have we been in the past as a governance structure, where are we now, and with this proposal, where could we go? And she's put a lot of work, and I think you'll find it very informative. I want to take this opportunity to introduce some other committee members who are here as well. So who is here? Is Jay? Stand up and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Jay Willett. I am representing Mountain Towns Red in this merger. One of them, I come from the town of Peru.
Dick?
I'm Dick Dale. I come from Londonderry. I also was appointed to the merger committee, and both Jay and I and Deb are also running, if you all will approve this merger, for the new board, because we feel that it's so good. We want the positive to happen.
And don't forget Jeff.
Oh, Jeff, sorry. So all the red people are solidly behind this, and we're putting ourselves on the line to make sure that the positives that are promised in this come to fruition.
Nancy?
Nancy Wolf, I'm the at-large member from Sunderland, Vermont. Obviously, Vermont.
All right, do we have any other committee members I'm not seeing here?
Who else do we have?
All right, so we have Jackie Wilson as well, the superintendent, who's done great work to help lead this initiative. And Dan French, the former superintendent, who's been our consultant. We hired him as a consultant, and he's brought his expertise to the table and has really been key to this process as well. And we have some Mountain Town Red board members. Can you stand and introduce yourself, John?
I'm John Morey, Mountain Towns Red, member from Brook.
And Charlie is here somewhere.
Charlie Cave, Mountain Town Reds from Londonderry.
All right, anyone else? Well, thank you all for coming. Deb's going to go bring you through some slides, and we're going to have you hold your questions as much as possible till the end. And I think you may have your questions answered later on in the presentation, but also we don't want to get going down up on tangents till we present to you full context. And then afterwards, we can answer some questions you may have. Okay. And we also have Jim Salzgiver here. I'm just seeing Jim now, from the BRSU chairman. And Jim and Sue, thank you. And Sue Wilborn, who's done so much finance. She works with the BRSU, and she's done so much of the financial modeling. It's been integral to the financials you'll see in your packets. So I'll turn it over to Deb. I think Deb is on the Mountain Towns Red board, but she's also part of the merger to become the Mountain Towns Red, and I think she's probably the only person in the state who's been on two merger committees, and she still has a big smile on her face. All right, I'll turn it over to Deb.
Well, first we want to thank you for coming in this weather. I want to just tell you how we came to decide to have it after all tonight. We went back and forth all day long. Should we have it? Shouldn't we? Will it be plowed? How will the weather be? And we said, well, we'll decide at 3 o'clock. When we see how the weather turns out. And then at 2 o'clock, we all got this email that went out to all the Floodbrook community, all the parents and all the teachers saying the meeting was on. So we said, oh, well, I guess that makes a decision for us. But we didn't know who had sent that out. And as it turns out, Neil tells us, he was up at 5 o'clock this morning when he wrote it and thought that he had sent it then. And somehow it just got lost. and all kinds of things went wrong with the server and the company that does this for us. And so I don't know what that says about computers and machines making decisions for us, but that's how it happened. So anyway, we're going to talk tonight about what this merger means to all of us. Let's see, wrong way. All right, so this is just a plan of what we'll talk about tonight, and this is the first thing that we'll talk about is looking backwards. Now, we did this for the last merger, and people really enjoyed it, so I wanted to share it with you again. And Weston is just an example that stands for all of us. In 1820, Weston had 9 school districts and 370 scholars up to 18 years old, which is pretty amazing. In 1882, we had 10 schools with 15 teachers, 234 kids, for a total annual cost of $1,240.08. In 1920, Weston closed their high school, so we've had high school choice in Weston for nearly 100 years. And then in 1953, we only had 1 school left. You'll recognize that as the village school, where the little school is. But in 1953, we had 82 students. Londonderry has a similar story. Londonderry had up to 13 grade schools over the years. By 1950, there were only 2 left, one in the North Village and one in the South Village. And I think that story probably speaks to all of our communities. And in fact, Londonderry, Peru, and Landgrove actually have their town halls in former school buildings. So wherever you drive around, you'll see, evidence of old schools that were there and are no longer schools. 1968, Londonderry, Peru, Weston, and Landgrove joined to form the Floodbrook Union School District, which was a K-8 union school. And that had 1 board, 1 tax rate, 1 budget, and we still had boards in each of our 4 towns to manage our high school kids. So then, in 2012, which is not so long ago, all of our towns then agreed to voluntarily merge so that the Floodbrook School Board and all of the 4 individual town boards merged to form 1 school board. And that board serves all K-12 students from all of our towns, 424 students. And again, we have 1 board, 1 budget, and 1 tax rate. And we operate 1 school, which is this Floodbrook School. And also as part of that move, we moved from the Bennington-Rutland Supervisory Union, moved to the Bennington-Rutland Supervisory Union. Now, just quickly, for some of you who may not know, a supervisory union is a central administration for all of these districts. It's the office of the superintendent of schools. And we used to be in the supervisory union that's centered in Chester. This one is centered in Manchester. And the reason we moved was because most of our kids here attend Burton Academy, which is in Manchester, and which aligns more with all of these towns who also send most of their kids to Burton. But also, all of these towns have high school choice. And the other supervisory union didn't have high school choice. So we moved here to preserve our high school choice. So the question we get the most is, do we have to do this again? And unfortunately, or fortunately, the answer is yes. Act 153 was voluntary. We were the first merger in the state and the only merger for a long time. I don't know, maybe 1 or 2 followed in subsequent years, but Tim tells us we're famous in Montpelier for being the first merger, but nobody else did it after us. So now Act 46 now encourages districts to seek merger partners, but it's an encouragement with a lot of teeth. It's a lot more than encouragement, as you'll see when we go along. A minimum district size is 900 students, and we only have 425. So we have to do something. We can't stay as we are. We have to merge. And so here we go again. It's the same dance again, only with more partners. So does anyone have any, well, I guess anything you want to add about that?
Yeah. I'm not sure if you're going to get into who we dance with, the dance partners.
Yeah, we come to that.
And but one thing, just statewide, a little bit of history. In 1800s, we had mid-1800s, we had 2,500 school districts in Vermont. So that's flooring to me. 1892, we had legislation that consolidated these school districts, right, to about 300 school districts. And so we have not really moved statewide since we're kind of at around that number now. So that gives you some context about how much little consolidation has happened in the past century.
Right. We also would say that this move, the Mountain Towns Red, was a good move for us. It's really been a good thing for our school, in a lot of ways. And I think if we went back and asked people about any of these changes, nobody would go back. It always was a difficult change, but in the end, it proved to be much better for kids. So it's sort of moving forward. Now, I'll tell you just a little bit about Act 46, mostly as it applies to us, because there's a lot about Act 46 that we don't need to discuss tonight. But these are the policy objectives, the purpose of the law. The first and main purpose is to ensure equity in the quality and variety of educational opportunity. They found that throughout the state, that was not happening, especially in very small schools where kids were not getting the same opportunity that kids in larger school districts were getting. That students must achieve and exceed the Vermont education quality standards. That we must maximize operational efficiencies and provide the flexibility to manage and share and transfer resources to increase district-level student-staff ratios. So the idea is to have a larger district that's more efficient to achieve those goals, that we should be transparent and accountable, and last but not least, we should provide all of this at a cost that parents, voters, and taxpayers value. We were, as a committee, charged with demonstrating that our plan could meet all of these criteria, every one of them. The other part is our dance partners. In order to preserve school choice, we need to merge with other districts who also have high school choice. For some of you who don't know, high school choice here means that there's a set tuition rate. It's the Byrne-Burton tuition rate. It's an agreed upon rate. And our town agrees to pay that amount for a student to attend any school that they would like to attend. So they can, just about all of them, except a handful, go to Byrne-Burton, but a few they go to Stratton Mountain, they go to Long Trail, or they can go to boarding schools in other places. There are just a few kids who do that. But if you want to preserve that school choice, then you need to merge with districts who also have school choice. If you merge with a district that happens to have a high school, then either all the kids go to that high school or they close their high school down and offer everybody school choice. I mean, there's no halfway. So school choice is something that all of you tell us is just highly valued in these communities and something that we worked hard to preserve. Realtors also told us that it means a lot for attracting people to our area. They come for the school choice. So this is just a off-the-wall question people are asking us. Is this related to the Rule 220 thing that you heard in the news a couple weeks ago about rules for private schools? No, it's not part of this at all. That's a matter for the Board of Education, the legislature. We don't get a vote on it. It's not part of Act 46. Maybe later we can ask Oliver to tell us more about that. I'm sure he has plenty to tell. But we aren't going to discuss that tonight. Act 46 must be voted by July 2017 to receive tax incentives that we'll talk about later. But if you don't merge, the states are going to do it for you. So by 2019. So there's really no choice to just stay as you are. So again, there's another question people ask us all the time. Are we voting on the merits of Act 46? No. Act 46 is here to stay. It's not going to change. So we've just worked really hard with our partners to shape our own destiny under the law. That was our goal. The law is not going away. So now we'll talk, anything else you want to say about Act 46? Okay. We'll talk about our particular proposal. We came up with the name, the Taconic and Green School District. We had all kinds of names. This one, we thought, as I think about it now, it sort of embraces us. I mean, these are our mountain ranges that sort of encircle and embrace us, which is a nice way to begin a school district. The 9 towns are Landgrove, Londonderry, Peru, and Weston, the 4 of our towns already, merging with Danby, Dorset, Manchester, Mount Tabor, and Sunderland. Again, we'd have one school board representing all those towns. one budget, and one education tax rate across the whole district. We'd operate 5 schools, so these are the schools we currently have in all of these towns. Courier is in Danby, the Dorset School, Floodbrook is this one, MEMS is in Manchester Elementary Middle School, and Sunderland has an elementary school. So we continue to operate all those same schools. They'd just be under the umbrella of a single district. All of these towns have high school choice, so that preserves that. And we will remain in BRSU, which in Bennington Rutland Supervisory Union. So we'll stay where we are. These towns will all be part of one district. What else do we have? So our enrollment right now, this is I think you can see that. Together with all these towns, we have 1,687 students, which is well above the minimum, so we're okay. You could see the 3 towns at the top are a little bit larger than the ones at the bottom. But the issue is that the 3, Dorset, Manchester, and Mountain Towns Red, we have K-8 schools, kindergarten to 8th grade, and we have 9 high school choice. The other towns, Sunderland and Danby, Mount Tabor, they have an elementary school, K-6 school, and they have choice from 7 to 12. So they have 7th and 8th graders also have school choice in addition to high school choice. And as you remember, we all have to have the same choice options in order to merge. So that means that Danby, and it's because they have middle school choice, they would need to adopt just 9-12 choice in order to remain in order to join this new district. Now, most of their kids already attend, or maybe half of their kids already attend middle school in Manchester. But some of them go to Mill River, some go to Arlington, some go to the Long Trail School, and those kids would have to attend one of our middle schools. They'd have to, Manchester, Dorset, or Floodbrook. But they would have to attend middle school within the new district. And this is, in order to smooth that transition, we made some grandfathering provisions so that kids wouldn't be caught in the middle, and kids who are already in the middle school can finish there. But it's a hard decision for those towns because this is a long-held tradition and it's difficult for them. So this brings us to another aspect of Act 46. We need to decide, we need to vote on which districts, which towns of these, all of them, are necessary to the merger, which means they have to vote yes in order for the merger to pass, and which ones are advisable. So we voted that the largest towns, Dorset, Manchester, and us, Mountain Towns Red, if they are the necessary districts. And if all of us vote yes, then the merger will pass. And the Mountain Towns Red actually counts as one district, so all of our votes will be, in these 4 towns, will be commingled. But the advisable districts are Danby, Mount Tabor, and Sunderland, because we're not quite sure how that vote will go for them. And if they vote yes, they're in the merger, but if they vote no, the merger can still go forward. If they vote no, it's a pretty difficult spot for them. They lose their small school grants, their tax incentives, and the state is going to reassign them anyway in 2019. They can re-vote again by July 2017 if they vote no, but that's a pretty small window. So everybody hopes that they vote yes, including all of us on the committee and many townspeople in those towns at the forum we attended last week there. Really hope that it does pass for the benefit of their communities and for the benefit of their kids. Another sticky issue was school closures. Act 46 says that no school can close in the first 4 years. And again, Courier and Sunderland have the smallest schools, so they're worried. In acknowledgement of their concern, we voted that no school could be closed without it requires a 75% vote of the board, which is greater than the majority that's normally required, simple majority. And that in the town, we'd have a referendum, non-binding referendum, and a public hearing in the town. At the last meeting, Jackie pointed out that it's pretty unlikely that we would close any of those schools, at least in the short run, because what would be more likely is that we might keep the primary grades there so that we aren't busing little kids great distances, and maybe if enrollments continue to decline, maybe the 5th and 6th grade we could move to another school, if that became necessary. But it's not likely that we would close a school unless things, unless the population dropped a lot. And it also is it's just, there's probably no chance that Floodbrook would close because we're pretty much way out here and we're one of the largest schools in the district, so we don't have to worry about that. All assets and liabilities turn over to the new district in 2017. That means the buildings. All school property is just turned over to them. This building is owned by the Mountain Towns Red. It's not owned by the towns, our towns. It's owned by the school district. So it's just another move to another district.
Yeah, that's July 2018.
Oh, 18. All right. Oh, sorry. Okay. So because all these assets will turn over to the new district, in advance of that, all of our districts are, we're taking our accumulated surplus and reserve funds, and we're applying them to this year's budget to reduce the tax rate this year, because this is money that we've collected from all of you you've donated, given that money to us for our schools, and it's like we're giving you back the change. We had some surplus funds that we've accumulated year after year, and we've used them to reduce this tax rate. And you'll see more about that later. BRSU, Benetton Rutland Supervisor Union, this is the way it looks right now. The blue ones are the towns that we propose to merge. So it's Dorset, Manchester, Sunderland, Mountain Towns Red, and Courier. Courier still has 3 school boards like we used to have. So that's 7 school boards in the blue boxes. There are 2 other districts within BRSU right now. Meadowy sends their high school kids to New York. So they don't have school choice. They're designated to attend high school in New York. And Winhall closed their school a few years ago, so they don't have a school at all. And they have school choice from kindergarten to grade 12. So neither of them would match with this with our merger. Either we'd have to all do what they do, or they'd have to all do what we do. It's not going to work. The proposal would be that we'd have one large Taconic and Green school district, and then these other districts, we don't know what'll happen. Each of them has been they've had their own merger committees that have sort of gone in fits and starts. They've had a hard time coming up with proposals. They don't have proposals right now before the Board of Education. They need to, now because we're getting close to the deadline, they need to go through some pretty stringent exercises to outline what their plan is and how they propose to meet those 4 policy objectives that we talked about in the first place. So they've got a tough road ahead of them. We don't have any say over where they're placed, or they don't either. It's all up to the Board of Education. So we'll see what happens. Anything else you want to say about that before?
Are you going to get to the waiver? Can we talk about that?
Oh, yeah, let me go back. You can see that we are a pretty big chunk of the supervisory union. So as part of our, when John and the others went before the Board of Education, they requested a waiver such that the BRSU, BRSU is governed by a board which has representatives that come from each of the districts within the BRSU. So in the past, which one goes back? In the past, each of these entities had representatives on the BRSU board. And now that we are one much larger board, we had a waiver from the state to make sure that our representation on the board reflects our percentage of the board.
Just describe the way the default is.
Oh, yeah, otherwise we would have had, we would have just had one vote? Three votes. Three votes out of 10, or something like that. So, and we will be more like 65% of the BRSU. So they granted us a waiver saying that, yes, they will allow us to have a greater voice on that board. Before we get into what will it cost, anything else you think we need to?
No. It's a preliminary waiver. It's,
Yeah.
they can't, of course,
Right.
set it in stone yet. It's a preliminary waiver that would grant us approximately 50% of the new SU board composition.
Right.
So the State Board of Ed, they draw the lines. So the AOE draws the lines for all supervisory unions.
So the way that the default system is set up for the supervisory union board to be formed is if you operate a school, then your district gets 3 representatives. Sorry. So the way that the board is created for the supervisory union is if your district operates a school like we do, then we get 3 representatives to the supervisory union board. If, for instance, Windhall is a non-operating district, they have K through 12 choice, they don't operate a school, they are allowed to have 1 representative on the supervisory union district. So that is why if we merge, we would end up having by that default system, we would have a much less voice than our population represents within the new supervisory union. So that's why we applied for this waiver, so that we could have an equivalent voice to our population within the supervisory union. So we had to get a waiver from that default setup.
And they agreed entirely. I mean, there was no concern about that. All right, so now what will,
If you go back to the last 2 pictures, Arlington isn't there.
oh yes, all right, Arlington. Arlington is in another supervisory union. They have a high school, it's a district with a tiny high school. They can't seem to find any dance partners. So they've tried, but they don't, their geographic location, and they can't find dance partners. So we think probably, since we're in a neighborhood, they would be placed with us as a separate district within the supervisory union.
What is the entity that gives the waiver?
Excuse me?
The entity that gives the waiver?
Oh, the State Board of Education. Yeah. Yeah, they're the ones who approved the plan. So what will it cost? That's the big question everybody wants to know. Big savings in the near term are unlikely. We'll be right up front with that. Bennington-Rutland, our supervisory union, has already centralized business operations, professional development, special education, curriculum coordination, contract negotiations, and other things. They've been really aggressive about doing that, more so than some other districts across the state. So we've moved forward with that, and that part is all done. So we won't really realize any new savings from that because we've already done that. We do expect that there'll be long-term savings following the spirit of the law, that we'll have greater flexibility to manage staffing and programs across the district. We'll have all together, so in a larger district we'll be able to share resources across the district. We'll have streamlined management, and especially one is for example, bus transportation. Now each of the towns owns its own buses. We have lots of overlapping, once we're in one district, we'd have lots of overlapping bus routes. Every town has a spare bus. So we think that we could realize some savings by streamlining all of that. We do centralized purchasing, maintenance, food service, technology, all of that stuff would be done on a larger scale. And then we think we'd have more stability and less risk for tax penalty when, for whatever reason, your budget goes up and down. if it happens to go up at a time when you aren't ready for that, you face a tax penalty. And this would smooth all those oscillations over a larger school district, and we hope minimize the chance of having to pay a tax penalty. Act 46 offers incentives. If we act before July 2017, we get an 8 cents reduction in our tax rate the first year, 6 cents the next year, 4 cents, and then 2 cents off our tax rate for the first 4 years. Then also, the tax rate cannot increase or decrease by more than 5%, and that's in order for all the different tax rates to merge, so that nobody's tax rate jumps up or down in the first year. It allows some smoothing so that all the tax rates eventually become one tax rate, within 4 years or so. And that's a little bit of money for the transition. So here we are. Let's see. These are tax rates for us in the red. In fiscal year 16, I guess we should look at it that way. Our tax rate, our education tax rate, as we figured the budget, was $1.68. But we were still working off the incentives that we earned the last time we formed the red. So there was a reduction of 4 cents, and the rate was $1.64. In the next year, we had a fluctuation in students again, which caused the rate to move up and down that time, sometimes up, sometimes down. But we still had the 2 cent incentive that we were working off from last time, so our rate was $1.58. In fiscal year 18, that's the budget we just wrote that will be coming up for a vote pretty soon. The base tax rate is $1.42, and that is because we applied all of those accumulated surplus funds and reserve funds to reduce the tax rate this year. We're returning that money to the taxpayers now. We had, for example, an operating surplus this year of $250,000 because we had counted on having more high school students attend than actually showed up. There were 10 students who, for some reason, didn't enroll or moved away. So we had that surplus from last year. But we collected that money from you last year, so we're giving it back now. Now in fiscal year 19, which would be the first year of the merger, we'd get the 8 cents, but because 162 is more than 5% over 142, we don't pay 154, we pay 149. So these are just, these numbers are not, we can't say for sure that that's going to be the tax rate for that year. The way that Sue developed these numbers was that she took the FY17 numbers, she juggled them for what was reasonable to expect. She increased them by 2.8% to reflect the New England Common Price Index. Is that right? Consumer price, and just projects that that's what the budget would be if we didn't change anything. We didn't move any kids around. We didn't get rid of buses or anything. We just took what we have now, added 2.8%, and combined all the budgets. Also, this doesn't include the CLA. That's the common level of appraisal. That's a formula through which the state tries to ensure that property values are assessed evenly across all the towns. So they compare sales prices to assessed values and determine whether your town is above or below the value of everybody else, and adjust our tax rates based on that. So in each of our towns, we don't pay that. We pay whatever it is adjusted for our common level of appraisal, and I'm sure that Oliver's going to have more to say about that too. There aren't many of you here from any of the other towns, so we can just go quickly through this, but the important column in this is arranged differently. The towns are on the side this time. This column shows you how much the new rate varies from the rate they paid last year. So, for example, Sunderland had a huge, had about $1 million in a reserve fund, and they applied that to their to lower their tax rate. Unfortunately, the law says you can't go below $1. So that's as low as they could go, but you'll see that 154 is 54% over their $1 rate. So they only pay 5% over the $1. And the same goes for, all of us, well, except for Danby. So I don't know if this is the last one for this. Yeah, so maybe we should answer some questions about all that.
Can I speak a little bit about the volatility?
Yeah,
first?
oh, yeah.
So I just want to talk a little bit, Deb spoke about those oscillations, how your tax rate goes up and down. And one driver of the volatility is 9 through 12 choice. And that secondary choice, what happens is you have to budget for the number of students that you predict will come in, right? And you have to pay those tuitions or vouchers, whatever you want to call them. And you have to pay for those, right? So the Mountain Towns Red, you guys were 10, you predicted, you had 10 fewer students than you predicted, right? So you're on a surplus. Manchester, I think, had 25 more students than they budgeted for, okay? So now that brings you into a deficit. So when we have these smaller districts, you have, and a smaller scale, that's going to have increased volatility in your tax rate. Because just with those secondary students, imagine if just Manchester and Mountain Towns Red worked together, some of those secondary students would cancel each other out. And so with that scale, we've looked at this pretty closely. We really hope that volatility in the tax rate will diminish. And there's some other reasons too that we hope that could diminish as well. Just the real estate market, right? Houses in Manchester were expensive for a while, and those are dropping down. More people seem to be moving in. But these demographic changes in the communities can really affect your tax rate, which is comprised of your spending and the number of equalized pupils you have. Okay, so the volatility is something we talked about a lot, and hopefully, if you can decrease that volatility, then the board can do some greater long-term planning and not have to, in a sense, go paycheck to paycheck.
We presume that a lot of the 10 kids from here moved to Manchester. If we'd known that ahead of time, we would have done it differently. But because we're separate districts, we never talked about that across districts. You budget for your own district, not for the whole. Okay. Benefits and challenges. Well, it preserves school choice. That's invaluable to us. We hope it streamlines governance and management. So there'd be one school board instead of 7. 7 school boards is a lot for a supervisory union to manage. They spend a lot of time attending a lot of school board meetings and preparing for meetings, and that's time that they could much better spend focusing on education and kids. We think we'd have improved financial controls, auditing, monitoring, and we also think it'd be more attractive to job applicants. Our best example is that when our superintendent left, our former, the supervisory union advertised for a superintendent and no one applied. It's just not the kind of job that would you want a job where you've got to be out several nights every week at board meetings? It was just kind of an unwieldy structure. So we're hoping, and then we're lucky because Jackie, who was the assistant superintendent, agreed to take on the job, and she's been wonderful. So we're fine. But and we're not looking for another superintendent anytime soon. But the other thing that they tell us is that it's very hard to hire part-time teachers or school staff. And that if we could share those kinds of people across the district, that we might be able to attract more candidates. It's hard to get people to come for a part-time job. It allows us flexibility to share resources, like sharing the part-time teachers, It means we can group students around, move students differently to serve their needs, and we can be more responsive to enrollment changes, like John was saying. If one school is increasing or another is decreasing, we'd have the capability to move kids around to really serve them better and to save money. So that's one of the primary goals, actually, of Act 46.
Move kids around between schools?
Yeah, we'll get to that. Thanks. Benefits to kids. We think that we'd have more opportunity to have innovation, languages, distance learning, all the exciting things that we'd really like to do, but we just don't have quite enough kids or people to do it. We hope that we could do that. We'd like to enlarge extracurricular opportunities, music, drama, sports. If we had more kids, we could field a team. And maybe we could even have a central middle school someday. This has been on the Floodbrook board, was a dream. This is our longtime dream. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could have a central middle school? Sometimes when we talk to parents who have kids who've been here, who are here, they all agree that the kids are really ready for a bigger experience. A few years ago, we actually convened a meeting at BRSU, the Floodbrook board did, to see if there were any way we could do those things, we could collaborate among the districts to do those things. We were mostly interested in algebra because we really struggle to provide algebra to our 8th grade kids here. There just aren't enough kids to take algebra. More foreign languages, drama, and music. Those were the things we were mostly concerned about. And we all got together and thought, well, yeah, those are all good ideas, but there was no way that we could actually carry it off. Mostly because of the financial constraints of having different budgets. You know, you can't use your money in one town to spend on something in another town. They're separate silos, as John likes to say, whereas now we'd all be under one roof and we could do those things. And that would be wonderful for kids.
I think even, we can not necessarily do that, but just explore, is it a good idea or not?
Right.
And that's the central middle school has been talked about for forever. But with those separate silos, those separate districts and separate boards, it's really difficult for those boards to collaborate. So this gives an opportunity for exploration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we would have collaborated, but there just wasn't any way financially to do it. You know, they're all separate budgets, and you wouldn't want us to go spend our money in Dorset, so we just couldn't do it. The other concern we get most often is local control. What about local control? Well, our local control now, we've had the Floodbrook Regional School since 1968, so we haven't really had local schools here for a long time. We also have a statewide property tax, which pretty much dictates a lot that's out of our control. We do have representatives on the board in the Mountain Towns Red, and we have an annual floor meeting, which is coming up in a couple weeks, where we vote on the budget on the floor. It's like a town meeting for the school. That's our local control now. In the future, if we have a merger, all of our towns would still be represented on the board. Instead of a floor meeting, we'd have an Australian ballot, which means you'd vote at the polls for everything, for candidates, for budgets, for whatever else has to come up that goes before the voters. So we wouldn't be doing floor meetings anymore. Some people think that's a loss of co-control, and as many people think that's an increase in local control, so that's the way it is. But the greatest loss of local control is if we vote no, and then the state merges us anyway, without our having a say in what happens.
If I could add that, we would still have like the annual school meeting where the budget is described and this and that, but you would not be voting for it on the floor that night. It would be an Australian. So you would still have a meeting, you'd be able to express your concerns, but it wouldn't be voted right there on the floor like it is now.
Right.
The other critical point is that the majority of students who currently attend Floodbrook would continue to attend Floodbrook. Dorset, Manchester. And when we talked about the flexibility of students, there's some occasions where a student might need a different environment to start over. And with this larger system, that would be certainly possible. So the majority of parent interaction is first with your local teacher, and then with your local administrators. Those people aren't going away. They're going to still be here. They're going to be the people that the majority of people in each of these towns will be dealing with. If it's an issue that's bigger than that, each of the towns will have a representative. And I, for one, and I know that the rest of us, feel decidedly that it's important for us to reach out to not only our own community, but also every other community, to make sure that the interests of kids are represented. We started our merger with 17 of us somewhat askance and doubtful, but we voted for the merger because, on balance, a tremendous benefit to all of the children, and that was our overarching concern. And that's why we voted for it, and we hope the people in our towns will vote as well.
All right, so now we'll just quickly go through the vote. You vote on town meeting day, all the towns, it'll be where you usually vote, town office or wherever, by ballot. If the vote passes, the Mountain Towns Red dissolves, and all of our 4 towns are back as individual towns again. The new board begins on July 2017, and then for a year, the old board and the new board are overlapping, and then on July 2018, the merger is complete. The vote, you vote yes or no on the merger proposal. You'll vote to elect the new board. And the new board will have 13 members, 1 member from each of the 9 towns, and then 4 members who are elected at large from the 4 largest towns, Danby, Dorset, Londonderry, and Manchester. People all ask us why this crazy configuration. The reason, it's because we try, if the law says every town gets 1 seat, and that the board can have no more than 18 seats. So because Manchester has about 35% of the population, and Landgrove and Mount Tabor each have 1% of the population, there's just no way that we can equitably divide up the votes if we're going to have whole people. so it just didn't work. So the other way that you can, the other alternative under the law is to have at-large voting, which means everybody in the whole district votes for everybody. So that's why that's what will happen. We also felt that Danby, Dorset, Londonderry, Manchester, as the largest towns, were underrepresented if we only did just 1 vote per town. So we decided that among those 4 towns, if other people want to run, then there are 4 seats open to anybody from all of those 4 towns to make a total of 13 on the board. So at first we were a little uneasy with this, but the more we thought about it, if everybody in the whole district votes for everybody, then that means that we're all responsible for everybody and accountable to everybody. We're not there just to represent my town and the heck with the rest of them. We are all there to serve all of us. So in a way, that's a benefit. The ballot, we have copies of the ballot out there. You should take a look at it before you go. Unfortunately, it's long because a lot of this is, here it is, 3 pages long with small print. A lot of it is required by law. We have to ask you, the voters, we have to tell you what the necessary and advisable districts are. We have to tell you what the board composition is, and then we have to tell you what it would be if Danby voted no, if Sunderland voted no, if 2 of them voted yes, you know. So every possible board configuration has to be listed there for your approval. And you also have to give the board authorization to transfer property and funds. So all of that is, you might want to pick up one of these or look at it before you vote, because all of that takes 2 whole pages. And at the very end, if I can open it here, at the very end, there's a yes or no, and you can say yes or no to all of those terms. That is the approves or disapproves the merger. Then below that, the candidates are listed by town, so you can vote for one candidate for each town. You can vote for as many of them as you want. You can vote for Jim Salzgiver from Dorset. You can vote for Jeff from Landgrove. You can vote all across the ballot, not just for the person from your town. And you can vote for 4 at-large candidates. We make it easy for you this year because none of them are uncontested. So you just vote for everybody. All of them are uncontested. Right. All of them are uncontested. None of them are contested. Thank you. So what if we vote
So
no?
can I just add to that one
Yep.
thing? So you're going to have the regular school board elections as well, right? So you're going to have a lot to vote for at town meeting time. So you have the regular board elections, which, I'm sorry, you guys have done the floor
Yeah.
here anyway.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Right, yeah, we're voted. No, yeah. We don't do it. Yeah. All right, so what if we vote no? We're getting to the end here. This doesn't apply to us, but we lose, we actually lose hold harmless provisions. Those are provisions in the law that smooth the change when if your enrollment drops precipitously. It's just a formula that smooths that change over time so that you don't take the hit all at once. It's a big boon to your taxes. You lose small school grants, which would go to Sunderland and Mount Tabor, Danby, and we have the tax volatility that John described. And if we vote no, they're going to do it to us anyway. So, all our kids. We think this proposal offers our kids we think it meets all of those criteria, and that it especially offers them increased equity, quality, and variety of education for decades to come. We think it maximizes efficiencies, accountability, sustainability, and we hope that it lays the foundation for a much larger community that's based on the belief that all our kids are all our kids. We came to this position by surprise. As Dick was saying, we all arrived from different places. These are very different towns, all of them, different sizes, very different towns. And we weren't sure how it was going to work. And we attended a meeting where someone said, gee, I hope when we have a school board that the board members don't just represent just their towns and ignore everybody else. And we went back to our meeting, and it just dawned on us that we had already come to the point where we all felt that all our kids are all our kids. I'm not there just representing Weston. We really worked hard to include all the kids, and we hope that as we move forward that we can keep that up, because that'll serve the kids the best. It's just the best way to serve kids. So we've come a long way. We've faced many changes. I guess we'd argue that a lot of the changes have all been improvements along the way for our kids, but what comes next, you decide. And you vote in March, and that's it. Thank you. Jim? No? Oh, good. But Jim had...
Just to be clear, if I'm a voter walking into the booth cold, and I decide, because I'm an idiot, to vote no on the Article 8, am I still able to vote on Article 9?
Oh,
Or
I guess so, yeah. We have a town clerk here. What do you think? Yeah?
Yes.
I'm just thinking if that question gets asked,
Yeah.
Well,
because there's no chance I'm going to vote no.
No. Oh, good. Oh, good.
Only because I want to vote for you, Deb.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I do the same for you, Jim.
But it's just a sort of procedural question.
Yeah.
So Kelly, you and I as town clerks would
would be able to tell you, yes, you would then vote for the representatives. Because if you vote no, that doesn't mean it's not going to pass.
Right.
So if you wanted to, you would then certainly vote for representatives
Right.
on the school board.
Marge?
Yeah, just to clarify,
Yeah.
if, and again, I'm not planning to vote.
No, good.
If the no vote happened in one of the necessary towns, when the state board then merges us, would they merge us
They'll do
any
it.
which way, and we might be in with a no choice school and lose?
Well, no.
They can't, the law states that they cannot merge districts that don't have the same choice structure.
They can't take
So
the choice
they would,
away.
they wouldn't have to take heed of our recommendations in this report, but they couldn't like force us in with Arlington and make all our kids go to Arlington
Right.
High School.
Right.
But we would lose our say in how we are going to go.
Yeah. Right. You had to, yeah.
Is there any provision in this anywhere for staff at the schools and stability for them so that they don't wind up moving from Floodbrook to MEMS or MEMS and whatnot for any period of time?
Yeah, all of those decisions about what happens from day one rest with the new school board. I mean,
I'm sorry, rest with,
with the new school board. We have no authority in our committee to tie the hands or to say anything about how the new school board will
So
proceed.
theoretically, just
Well,
vote on this, the new structure goes in place.
So, but we have that transitional year where Floodbrook's board, the Mountain Town Red Board will still be operating this school, while the new Taconic and Green School
Right.
Board is basically taking that year where they'll be planning for the budget that they're going to be coming up, but they'll also be squaring away that policy
right.
at that point.
But once it goes into effect, there's nothing in essence that would say, Neil, you're going to MEMS.
There's already existing language in the collective bargaining agreement that protects teachers from arbitrary or capricious reassignment.
Right.
So that is the kind of thing where there's already the spirit of support for that kind of thing within the.
And it is in the articles that
supervisory
those contracts have to be supported.
In addition,
Yeah, and John has it.
I
John?
would just also note, like, along the same lines, you wouldn't expect the boards to just be shifting
No.
people around arbitrarily. If teachers are going to take a job at one school and expect to stay there, and that could be in the contract. But on the flip side of that, if one school is losing students, the employer is now the district. And if one school needs a teacher and another school has too many teachers, that teacher would presumably get the job at another school, because it's the same employer. So it opens up opportunities as well as.
Yeah, there was a question, one for the students, but also just for the staff, right, for the faculty, that they don't arbitrarily.
We actually have some experience with this because a couple of years ago, we centralized special education. All the special education teachers from all around, all of these schools now work for the supervisory union. But you didn't see us, there was no great shifting around. The idea is to, you have some greater flexibility, but you still want things to run smoothly.
Yeah, right.
we, as part of the merger process, reached out to each of the faculties of each of the schools to get their concerns and the issues that were important to them. And our answer at that point was, we want to keep things, at least initially, as similar to the way it has operated as we can.
It would be mostly in response to rapidly declining enrollments that we'd have to, and we'd have to do something anyway if that happened. Any other?
No talk of a specific trigger point, though?
No.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not within our control really, so there
No.
would be like ways to,
No.
for us, we have no power in that.
Do you have a budget to promote the ESMO?
A budget to promote the ESPA. We had a grant, the state gave us an amount of money to conduct, to run the committee, to conduct our studies and all of that, yeah. And that's all. The postcards were.
It's state money, so we can't use it to campaign.
No.
provide you with the information that gets you excited about this, so you will go out and help be ambassadors to share the information, because I think the biggest fear is looking at this ballot, and for the people that haven't read it, it's a lot of words.
Yeah.
And even though it's going to be in the town reports, it's still a lot of words. And so people may not take the time, and that sometimes scares people off. So I think the more we can all do to just talk about it, the more we can have informed decisions, so that those people that are voting no, is they know why they're voting no, not just because they don't really know what it's all about. So
Esther?
that's important.
We sent out information to every
Yeah.
voter about explaining what you explained tonight. And that was really helpful preparing for the vote. I
Yeah.
know we're really close now, time-wise, but that was a great way to get the
Yeah,
information.
Esther was also on the Red Steering Committee. Yes, we did. We sent out a folder, right?
Right, the trifold.
Yeah,
Deb, we have included all of that. All this information will be in the town reports.
oh, all right.
So we've included FAQs, everything is going out to the voters.
And in the mountain towns.
And the mountain towns, right.
So it is going out to every
Yeah.
voter, it's
And
just,
these frequently asked questions, if you haven't got one, pick one up on the way out. It's really comprehensive, and take a copy for your neighbor and anybody else. We'll try to get those out as much as we can. Take some with you and put them wherever you think they need to go. Do you have a
Is
question?
this slide deck available anywhere?
Excuse me?
Is this slide deck available?
No, I can give it to you, yeah.
I got a copy of it, and
Oh,
I'm
good.
here representing the Chester Telegraph, and I believe we can, if it's okay with you guys, we can make it available through the Chester Telegraph, which will also end up on the Facebook page here in Vermont, here.
Yeah, we'll also
In
put it
Londonderry.
on we'll put it on this website. This is our website.
Did you put it on JDOT as well?
That's what they're doing.
We are, got it.
Good.
Do you have an inkling of whether or not the advisable towns are leaning in a yes or no vote?
Well, let's ask Nancy. Nancy's from Sunderland.
I don't really know for sure. We haven't had our forum yet. I think the general feeling seems positive, but I think the issue is trying to get people informed, because it is a small community. You know, parents will know, but how about non-parents too? So that's why we're going to meet after our merger committee day to strategize further how to get info
Yeah,
out.
and at the Bandy Forum, there was a lot of support, but they were worried. It's just hard to make that change, you know? It's a big change, and people sometimes have a hard time with the change, so we hope. Now, Oliver, do you have anything you'd like to add here? We've got you driving all the way down here through a snowstorm to be with us.
No, I really think you did a great job in, presenting the merits and of the merger and also some of the concerns. So I think together with the presentation and all the other information out there, as long as people can get the information, I think it's all there to make an informed decision. And as I think many have said, anything you can do to help spread the word, I'll certainly, I'm happy to forward out the presentation through my email list and other means as well. So yeah, no, I don't have anything else to add. Again, I'll be around for questions. I think there's a lot of concern in the community about Rule 2200, which as Deb stated, has nothing to do with this whatsoever. It's a completely separate issue, and I'm happy to talk about that offline. But.
Okay, yes. Yeah?
In looking at Article 9 at the at-large candidates, I think it would behoove the Mountain Red if we could get somebody to stand for election to represent the mountain towns. It's stated, it's all for everybody and everybody for all, but it would certainly help if we have a representative that all the red towns could get behind to put someone on that board, so we would have a little bit more voice from up the hill.
Yeah, well, we'll actually have, we'll have one seat each from Weston, Landgrove, Londonderry, Peru. There isn't an at-large, Londonderry would qualify, but there's not one from
At this point,
London.
it would have to be a write-in campaign.
Yeah, right.
Because the deadline for handing in a
But, and also, this is a little, because this is the first time, you know, this is unfamiliar, and all the people are on the ballot. These won't all come up every year, because there'll be 3-year terms, some are staggered. So the ballot won't include all of this every year. And maybe as it gets forward, we'll have some kind of way for people to know who the candidates are.
The at-large seats are a single year in the rotation. So if someone is not elected at this particular point, by the time that the new board is actually in full operation, there will be another election for the at-large seats.
And I think it's also good to say, it's just a great example of another reason that, you know, merger is advisable, is because this ballot is typical, a sparsely populated ballot. I mean, there's many school boards. What do we have? 7, 9? 11. And many of those have empty seats because nobody runs. So, I mean, we have 13 people running for 13 seats. And that is it's not easy to populate a ballot. So to have 9 or 11 school boards, that's a lot of people that you need to volunteer. And it's just not happening.
So we'll start working on all of you.
Can I bring up one small, minor potential change? With merger. So currently, I think people in the mountain towns would want to know about this, that currently BBA gets about $16,200 for tuition, right? And all the sending schools around here send that. And in the mountain towns, you guys have it set up so you send, regardless of where it goes, I think, am I right? They get that $16,200.
Yeah.
That's not true in every district that's part of this potential merger. In Manchester, if you don't go to Burton, then you'll get $14,773, the state union average. And so that's a decision that's made, that's put on the warning, and that's something that I think you guys advocated for. So that's something that the future board would have to decide, and future voters would have to decide. And so that's a small, discrepancy of $1,500 or so, but that's something that I've heard, some people around here discuss.
Yeah. So that would come before the voters again someday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On 12, when it discusses the merger of the assets, when we did the red formation, did we merge our assets already? So that's not a discussion for us to have.
Oh, well, no.
Because it talks about whether the union gets the assets or perhaps the town keeps the assets. So where do we stand with that?
Yeah, that's if someday, which is not really likely, but suppose someday the new district doesn't need this school anymore, right? So we could, I hope I get this right, we would offer it back to the town to buy. How's it go? Tell me again.
We voted to sell it with the assets being distributed by a formula to the 4 towns.
So the school would belong to the new district. If at some time in the future they don't need it, they'd sell it, they'd sell it. And
the other towns, because of the way they work, in the Courier School, if that were closed, it would be first offered to Danby. And if Danby didn't want it, then Mount Tabor would be offered the school. If Mount Tabor didn't want it, then it would be sold with the assets divided again by formula between Mount Tabor and Danby. So it's a little different for each town. As of July of 2018, formally all of the school assets are merged into the Taconic and Green system, and they become, like our red was, the owner of all of the school properties and all of the residual assets that are accompanied in that, which is one of the reasons why there's a premium on trying to spend the savings and surplus assets so that the towns that contributed to those assets actually get to use them.
Right. So 12.
Yes, yeah, liabilities also, right.
But Flutter has a debt.
We have a debt from the roof.
And I think what we've seen in the past, this budget season, is that the potential for collaboration. No one's taken, with the merger pending, potentially, no one's taken the credit card and gone to Vegas and ran up the debt knowing that we're going to pass it on to a merged district. I think that's speaks to this collaborative spirit.
One thing we did here is that because we knew we had some money in our grounds and buildings reserve fund, and because we're in Wyndham, part of us is in Wyndham County, we were eligible for a grant as part of the Yankee decommissioning fund to purchase a pellet wood burning system. So we went ahead and took advantage of that offer, and we think that, we project that that's actually going to save money, for a long time on fuel bills. So we spent some of your money that way on a one-time capital expense. We didn't use it to increase programs. Stuff like that.
So in other words, number 12 has an answer, and the answer is on your website for what this preliminary board chose to do with our assets at this time.
Yeah.
That is what will happen.
Yeah, all the
Once you vote
assets.
yes to that, the board can't change what voters vote on. That's why it's listed here, so once you confirm that that's...
Made the decision on how we're going to deal with our assets.
Right.
And when we vote yes, we will agree with the decision you've already preliminarily made.
Right.
And that is listed at the website somewhere.
Yes, and the only way that would be able to be changed would be by a vote.
It's also a provision of the law, I think, that we must hand our assets over to the district. We don't have a choice to keep them simply.
I was just curious about the process of it. I couldn't quite tell if it was something that the first form board would decide, or it had
It's
already
done.
kind of been designed, so.
Yeah, it'll be
it's-
done.
Got it. Great, thanks.
And a committee of 17 people all agreed on this?
Yes, isn't that remarkable? It really is, and that the State Board of Education also unanimously agreed. We're really quite proud of that, because there aren't many cases that have gone that smoothly. We owe a lot to our fearless leader, and it's just been a really good committee. We've tackled some really tough issues and tried to be fair, and
my experience, I have 3 kids in the school and one more still going to be coming into it. And I think that the Mountain Towns, we kind of came into it already doing it once, and my experience is, and the experience of everyone else, is that we really don't specify ourselves by town. We're all the Floodbrook community. These are all our kids, We go to school, we bring them, drop them off, we're all a community already. So we kind of brought that to the merger table, being like, it worked out. And we're not like this town and that town, we're all Floodbrook kids, We're all Floodbrook families.
I think that natural bond exists on this committee as well, because we all send kids to BBA, right? And so a lot of us, have kids who are siblings or have gone to BBA with other people from other towns. I know personally, I went to MEMS and BBA, and so I feel connected to all these communities, having grown up with these kids, playing sports with them my whole lives, or going to high school with them. So that we look in other parts of the state where study committees and mergers have fallen apart, and I think a common denominator that's kind of fascinating is that they don't have this cultural bond. And I really feel strongly that we have this cultural bond amongst these communities.
Yeah. Yeah, and we really do believe all our kids are all our kids.
And I think we see them growing just because of extracurriculars perhaps involving multiple schools.
Yes.
So your kids and parents are going to be going to each other's schools for chorus or for athletics, whatever. Your kids are going to know each other more going into BBA or whatever they do. And, we even think economically for the Southern Vermont, it could make a difference. It could enhance why people come here to live, because it's another opportunity for a good education.
Right. What do you think?
I just
Sorry, Jim, yeah.
have to add, it is so rare in community service to see so many people working so hard to pursue the greater good, and I think you guys deserve a huge hand.
Thank you. That means a lot. We met 14 times. But we had supper every time. That helped a lot.
Brings them out.
Equity, the district operating multiple schools.
Yeah.
If Floodbrook, for instance, wanted to offer laptops first through 8th, do all the schools in the district have to offer laptops first through 8th? Or if Floodbrook wanted to teach French, do all the schools have to offer French?
Jackie, you can answer that.
I mean, I think that is a decision that, of course, that the new board will take a look at that. We have right now, we've worked really hard at equity across our schools, period. So as far as like technology exposure, we're almost the same in all of our schools with access to technology, so that's not an issue. The place where we see the biggest differences, and Deb mentioned them earlier, are in foreign language. Only three of the 5 schools we're talking about have foreign language and 2 don't. And then some of the arts offerings and algebra advanced math classes. So I think those would be issues that we'll look at as, the new board will look at and say, how do we, if we think these programs are really valuable, how do we make sure that all of our kids have access to programming like that?
Are there any legal requirements along those?
Are there any what?
Legal requirements along those lines? That all the schools have to have an equitable offer?
There's no legal requirements, but I think it would be the board, again, as Deb mentioned, they're looking out for all kids. So you're going to want to, if you make a determination that it's really valuable for kids in grades 5 through 8 to have foreign language, then one school shouldn't have it and another school not. So you'll be looking at how do we enhance foreign language across all of our schools if that's the issue.
And I think one thing that I get really excited about the possibility down the road is I have 2 young kids who go to MEMS. But just for all the kids is this possibility that we could really unlock something innovative here. And potentially it could have economic impact. But that, public schools get slapped with this one-size-fits-all. And that's not true. It doesn't have to be true, especially with a merged model. We could, if the board wanted to, they could look at, okay, let's see how we can differentiate these schools. Let's see, and see maybe Floodbrook become a STEM school, or Manchester could become, specialized in the arts. And then potentially down the road, we could have, if this is what the, people in the district and the board wanted, then you can have some in-district public choices. But my kid, I think, was really geared towards STEM, science, technology, engineering, math. I want them to go, I live in Dorset, but I want them to go to Floodbrook here. And then people outside this community see that there's some really innovative things going on here. So these are just things that could happen, right? Not to say they will happen, but there's, this really could unlock some innovation in education.
Also, it seems to me that you could end up doing things like language with that whole part-time. Nobody wants a part-time job or can afford to take a part-time job unless they're semi-retired. But you could hire a Spanish teacher who works 2 days here and 3 days, there, or 2 and 2 and 1. And a French teacher, but you couldn't have both in any of these one schools.
Or chorus, or band, any of that.
Does the website also have information about any potential change to the transportation system of students?
No, the new board will be in charge of that. We will hire, is it right, Jackie? We're going to hire a transportation coordinator.
Is that set yet, or?
No, well, we
No,
may.
it's not for next year, no.
Yeah.
Somebody would be.
But just to get rid of overlapping routes and that kind of stuff. But
It is in the proposal that our plan is to basically, in that first year of operation, to keep the system of transportation the same as it is currently.
everything will be the same the first year.
Is there anything in there that states that one school's transportation system that exists, perhaps like ours, is a separate business entity, won't be affected and is guaranteed not to lose a certain percentage of revenue?
Well, what do you think?
As part of the plan, there's certain things that school boards have authority over and certain things the electorate has authority over. Transportation is one of those things the school board has clear legal authority over. So it's easy for the committee, as Dick said, we just say, or Jay was saying, the new board has to figure that out.
Right.
But as you could imagine, now you're going to have one board dealing with the whole system. But the first year, I think, as you said, it's going to stay as it is, but the new board's going to have to figure that out.
But the advantage of the fact that many of us who served on the committee, we spent an awful lot of time talking about a lot of different issues. Transportation was a very important issue for all of us, and we heard each other's perspective and points of view.
I think, are there any more? Any more? Oh, yeah.
Well, I would just, going way back to the tax rate.
Yeah.
They were different in 2019.
Yeah.
When do they align?
They each, they merge, nobody's rate can raise more than 5% a year, but eventually they all come to the same rate. You know, the ones that are already closer will get there sooner. The ones that, with a big gap, will get there later, but probably 4 years, 5 years, something like
It
that.
can't drop by more than 5%.
Yeah.
It's a stabilizer mechanism, so
Yeah.
no one has experiences.
Yeah. In the red, in our red, it was 4 years, but, and then we were all at the same rate.
Is it 4, is that the law? Is it?
There's 4 years of incentive, so year
Yeah.
5, if you've been limited for all 4 years and you
Yeah.
never made it to that 5% variance, in that 5th year, everybody's done, everybody's going to be the
Yeah,
same. So
right.
by 5 years at the latest.
Yeah.
5 years. Okay, thanks.
So I'm a little late on studying a lot of it, but, so it's written or not written that this vote will or will not affect the fiscal success, the financial success of someone's transportation system. I mean, this school can't afford to not have a successful transportation system, and the governing board should not necessarily control those
Yeah, well, it'll be
profits, but that
one
may happen, or
yeah,
it's not
it'll
been
be-
discussed, or we can read about
It'll be
it.
one transportation system. It won't be the Floodbrook system and the other one and the other one. It'll be all the districts will be under one transportation
I
system.
don't believe that we make any profits.
No.
We own the buses that are paid for with your
Yeah.
taxes. We
Right.
don't lease them to anybody.
Right.
And nobody leases them to us. We own them, and it's not a
But I
business.
believe it's not a great cost. I believe is it not something that's, so it should save money then?
Well, before you all go, we just want to thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, Donna.
Would not necessarily need every single school to have an extra bus, because all the bus routes will be overlapping. And I mean, I definitely think it will save money. That comes out of the education. Purchasing buses, for sure.
So
I just can't, I guess I'm just mixing up some of the stuff with Red and Chester and the stuff with transportation.
Yeah,
It's a
we
major
don't-
concern.
No, there's no business involved in our buses or any of the buses for the districts that are involved in this merger. There's only, they own them and they use them and you pay for them.
It's just a cost. Thank you. And we can keep going on that, but before people leave, we just want to say thank you for coming. Thank you. And spread the word.
Yeah, you guys can follow us on Facebook or can email me anytime if you want to get an email blast.